There was an old woman in our village named Megan. Her husband and son had both passed away. She begged door to door every day, and if anyone refused her, she'd stand at their door and curse until they gave in. People in the village were afraid to get entangled with her, so they'd avoid her whenever they saw her. One time she came to our house to beg. My grandpa wasn't home, and my grandma, feeling sorry for her, gave her a white wheat bun. She cradled it in her hands, her wrinkled face breaking into a wide grin. "Sister," she said to my grandma, "this bun of yours is big, white, and must smell heavenly." As she spoke, I kept my eyes on hers. Those eyes darted around like she was cooking up some mischief. My grandma didn't say much, and just let her take the bun and go. But only a few days later, she came back again. Standing at the gate, she called out to my grandma, "Sister, got any more of those big white buns?" "Give me 2 more." My grandma frowned and said, "Didn't I give you one last time? Go ask somewhere else." But Megan didn't move. She just reached a hand through the gate, grinning with her rotting teeth. "Sister, your buns are just too good. After tasting yours, I can't stomach anyone else's." My grandma, afraid the neighbors would laugh at us, sighed and handed her 2 more. Megan was shameless. Just a couple of days later, she came again. My grandma was stewing a chicken in the kitchen when she heard Megan shouting from the gate, "Smells amazing. Sister, I haven't had meat in ages. How about a bowl of that stew?" That got my grandma mad. She stormed to the gate and yelled, "You shameless old woman! My daughter-in-law is pregnant. This chicken is for her nourishment. The meat and broth are hers, not yours." Megan's eyes went wide. She shouted, "What? She gets the whole pot? Isn't she afraid of bursting?" My grandma was fuming, but before she could respond, Megan shoved open the gate and barged into the yard, mumbling, "Who eats a whole chicken stew by herself? What a sin! I'll help her out and have 2 bowls." Megan headed straight for the kitchen. My grandma tried to stop her, yelling, "What are you doing? Who let you in?" Megan ignored her and kept going. Just then, my grandpa came back from the mountain with vegetables. Seeing Megan in our kitchen, his face turned dark. "Where did this stinking beggar come from? Begging in my house?" He grabbed his hoe and chased her out. Megan plopped down in the yard, still holding a chicken drumstick she'd snatched. Grandpa told her to drop it, but she refused, wailing and screaming. Grandma, embarrassed, tried to calm him down. "Just let her have it. If the neighbors see, they'll think we're bullying her." Grandpa glared. "She's just a filthy beggar. Why should we give her anything?" Then he tried to snatch the drumstick back. My aunt, hearing the commotion, came out holding her belly. "Dad, Mom, what's going on? Why so much noise?" When Megan saw my aunt's fair face, she snapped, "You got a whole pot of chicken and won't share any with me? All that good soup going into a little slut like you don't come crying when you birth a useless girl." That did it. Grandpa's temper exploded. He kicked Megan in the back. "Get out! Get the hell out before I beat you to death!" Megan cursed as she was shoved out of the yard. She kept cursing outside the fence. "Bitch! Worthless!" My aunt turned red, nearly losing her balance. Grandma rushed to me and said, "Luke, help your aunt inside." I nodded and quickly helped her into the house. Megan kept ranting outside for a while before finally dragging herself away. Grandma, worried my aunt was shaken, poured a bowl of chicken soup and took it to her room. My second uncle was working in the city, and the baby in my aunt's belly was the whole family's hope. My aunt wasn't feeling well and only took a few sips. Grandma divided the rest of the soup between me and Grandpa. We sat in the courtyard eating. I was 10 then, at that age where all I wanted was meat. I dug into the chicken, ignoring everyone else. Grandpa sat smoking angrily, still bitter about Megan stealing that drumstick. Grandma knew his heart wasn't great and tried to calm him. "It's just a drumstick. Let it go for the baby's sake. Think of it as doing a good deed." Grandpa snapped. "I'd rather feed it to a dog than give it to her." By then, it was dark outside. I glanced toward the wall and saw a wrinkled old face peeking over it, grinning at me. It looked just like Megan's. Before I could cry out, she slipped into the shadows and vanished. Grandpa didn't sleep well for days. He was fuming over Megan and couldn't let it go. One day after school, I saw him in the yard setting up a big pot, steam rising as meat bubbled inside. He sat on a stool, eyes fixed on the alley beyond the gate, lost in thought. When he saw me, he said, "Luke, finish your homework. We're having braised meat tonight." I beamed and ran to put down my bag. I was about to wash my hands when I saw Megan's head poke over the wall again. "Brother, how come you're cooking meat again? Smells delicious. Share a piece with me?" That woman had a nose like a bloodhound. Grandpa didn't answer. He just smirked, picked up a soft, juicy piece of meat, and dangled it in front of her. "Want a bite?" Megan nodded eagerly. Suddenly, Grandpa flicked his chopsticks and tossed the meat into the dog's bowl. Megan's face darkened immediately. "I'd rather feed it to the dog than give it to you." Grandpa barked, grabbing a stick to chase her off. Megan, gritting her teeth, had no choice but to scramble down the wall and flee. For several days, Grandpa kept stewing meat in the yard. Megan would squat by the gate, drooling. Grandpa mocked her relentlessly, calling her a dog in human skin. Grandma couldn't take it anymore. "You old fool, why keep picking fights with her? Megan's nasty and spiteful. We've got a baby coming. Don't stir up trouble." Grandpa huffed, stroking his beard. "I just can't stand her. I want her to drool to death. Let's see if she ever dares steal from us again." Grandpa was stubborn. Grandma sighed and stopped arguing. Megan was afraid of him, so whenever he wasn't home, she'd just curse from outside the fence and never dared come in. A few days later, Grandpa had to go to town. It was just me, Grandma, and my aunt at home. Grandma was timid and afraid Megan might come for the meat. So before dark, she made sure we finished dinner. There was still some stew left in the kitchen, but she made us eat it all. Then she said, "Megan's nose is too sharp. Don't let her smell a thing. If she comes asking, just say we ate veggie cornbread." I nodded and kept it in mind. After dinner, it wasn't fully dark yet. Grandma and I were in the yard boiling herbal medicine for my aunt. Her health was fragile, and she relied on it for the baby. Halfway through, Grandma went to the outhouse, leaving me alone. I was yawning next to the bubbling pot when a dry, raspy voice came from above. "Little boy, it's so late, why haven't you eaten yet?" I looked up and saw Megan's eyes glowing green in the dark, staring straight at me. She looked just like the old witches from picture books. I nearly cried in fear. "You old witch! Go away!" Megan cackled and leaned halfway over the wall. "I know your grandpa's not home. Hand over the meat." I shrank back, yelling at the top of my lungs. "Grandma, help!" Megan panicked and leapt over the wall. She reached out and touched my face, her fingernails long and filthy. "Where'd you hide the meat, kid? If you don't tell me, I'll eat you instead." I sobbed. "We didn't have meat, just veggie cornbread." Her eyes darted back and forth. She grabbed my mouth and sniffed. "You little liar. I can smell the meat on your breath." Then she shoved me aside and stormed into the kitchen. Grandma came running from the outhouse, yelling, "Luke, what happened? Why are you crying?" I rushed into her arms, bawling, "Grandma! Megan's in the kitchen. She's looking for meat." Grandma trembled at the news and scolded me. "Why'd you let her in?" No sooner had she spoken than Megan darted out of the kitchen like a monkey. Grandma shielded me. Megan snarled, "Sister, where's the meat? Don't you try to trick me, I smelled it on that brat's breath." Grandma stammered, "Megan, we really don't have any left. It's all gone." Megan didn't believe her. Her eyes shifted toward my aunt's room. "Maybe it's all in that little slut's room." She marched over to push the door open. Grandma ran over to block her, shouting, "I told you we're out of meat! If you don't leave, I'll go call the neighbors." My aunt heard the ruckus from inside and opened the door. "Mom, what's all the noise? Is Megan here?" Grandma panicked. "It's nothing, shut the door." But it was too late. Megan saw her and lunged. "Slut, let me see if you've got meat hidden in there." My aunt, startled, screamed, "Mom, help!" Grandma rushed over, but Megan had already barged in and spotted the unfinished bowl of soup on the table. She slapped my aunt across the face twice. "So it's true you were hiding the meat in here." My aunt nearly hit the table, but Megan wasn't done. She grabbed her by the hair and dragged her into the yard. My aunt clutched her belly with both hands, terrified something might happen to the baby. Grandma rushed forward to stop her, but tripped and fell hard to the ground. She clung to Megan's leg, crying out, "Megan, let go! Don't hurt my daughter-in-law!" I ran over and started pounding Megan's arm with my fists, shouting, "You old witch!" But Megan only got bolder. She shoved my aunt to the ground and was about to kick her. Grandma threw herself over my aunt, taking the kick herself. That just made Megan kick harder. Gritting her teeth, Grandma yelled to me, "Luke, go get your fourth uncle, now!" I wiped my tears and bolted toward the neighbor's house, but Megan grabbed me by the neck and shoved me down, snarling, "Run and I'll break your legs, brat!" Just then, the herbal pot on the stove began to boil, whistling loudly. Megan smelled the medicine, and her face twisted with malice. "You little bitch, hiding my meat. Let's see how you live without your medicine." She kicked the pot with a loud crash, and the herbal brew splashed all over the ground. We were all frozen. The steaming soup soaked the dirt, turning it into a mess. Megan laughed hysterically at our horrified faces. Grandma was so furious she burst into tears, slamming her fists on the ground, covered in dust, and sobbed, "Megan, you heartless witch." Just then, our neighbor, Uncle C, heard the commotion and climbed up to peer over the wall. "Auntie, what's going on in there?" Uncle C was a hunter, big and burly. As soon as Megan saw him, she panicked and bolted out of the yard. Uncle C saw the scene in our courtyard and rushed over, but Megan was already gone. Grandma struggled to her feet and ran to check on my aunt. She was pale as a sheet, one trembling hand clutched over her belly. She mumbled weakly, "Mom, my belly." That night, Uncle C hitched a cart and rode to the next village to fetch a doctor. The fright, combined with Megan's assault, nearly cost my aunt her baby. Grandpa rushed home from town that very night. Seeing my aunt lying weakly in bed, lips white as paper, Grandma wept while feeding her medicine. "It's all my fault. How will I explain this to our second son?" Grandpa punched the wall, shouting, "That crazy hag! I'm gonna kill her!" He stormed off toward the woodshed to grab his axe, but he'd exhausted himself from the journey. After a few steps, he collapsed, clutching his chest and coughing up blood. Grandma helped him onto the bed and gave him medicine. He finally came around after a while, but he was still fuming. "Half conscious," he muttered. "Call my second son." Grandma froze, then said, "Don't be ridiculous. If he finds out, he'll kill Megan. That old witch isn't worth it." Uncle Si chimed in. "Uncle, don't tell your son. From now on, anything happens, just call me." But Grandpa wouldn't listen. Gasping for breath, he kept repeating, "Call him. Call him now." Morning came, and Grandpa still wouldn't eat or drink. He was set on bringing back my second uncle. Grandma had no choice but to go to the store and make the call. When Uncle heard what happened, he was furious. He borrowed a motorcycle and sped back from the city like a storm. He burst through the door, shouting, "Anna? How's Anna?" Grandma was so relieved she started crying. "They're both okay." He and Grandma rushed into my aunt's room. My aunt, tears streaming down her face from the pain, still tried to calm him down. "Don't go after Megan. I'm fine." Just then, Grandpa called out from his room, "Tony! Get in here!" Uncle wiped his tears and ran over. Grandpa, shaking with rage, pointed at him and said, "That old witch came to our door and did this. Your big brother's gone. You're the only one left holding this family up. We can't take this insult." Tony was a big, broad man. He grabbed Grandpa's hand and said, "Dad, don't worry. If I don't peel the skin off that hag, I won't come back." Grandma quickly stepped in. "Tony, don't listen to your dad. Megan isn't worth it. Anna's about to give birth. You can't throw yourself away. If we have to, we'll move." Grandpa roared, "Shut up, woman. This isn't your call." Tony ignored her. He humored her a bit, then got up and went to the shed, grabbing an iron rod. Ruffling my hair, he said, "Luke, where's that witch's house? Show me the way." I hated Megan too, so I nodded eagerly. Uncle Tony had grown up wild in this village and had 2 iron-willed brothers. He called them, and together we headed to Megan's house. She was sitting in her yard under the sun, surrounded by stolen offerings cakes and snacks, clearly taken from someone's grave. Tony kicked the gate open. Megan jolted awake and saw 3 strong men standing there. She panicked. "What do you want?" Tony gritted his teeth. "You filthy hag. You think you can mess with my family? You're dead meat today." Megan's face changed. She seemed to recognize him. You're Jack's second son?" she stammered. Feeling bold with the crowd, I pointed at her and shouted, "Uncle, that's her! She's the old witch! Hit her!" Megan scrambled to her feet, trying to run, but Tony and the others rushed in, pinned her to the ground, and began beating her. Megan covered her head, screaming, "Help! They're hitting an old woman!" That only made Tony angrier. "You still have the nerve to scream," he barked, and the punches came down harder, like he meant to end her. But Megan wasn't done between blows. She screamed, "You little bastard! If you don't kill me today, I'll cut your woman open and see what kind of mutt she's carrying." Tony's eyes went bloodshot. He pulled the iron rod from his back and smashed it down on her leg. "Say that again. I dare you." Megan let out a blood-curdling scream. Her leg twisted at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. By then, the commotion had drawn a crowd. Villagers poured in, and Grandma came running. I clung to her, terrified. "Tony, stop! That's enough!" she shouted, but Tony wouldn't listen. Then someone in the crowd yelled, "They're gonna kill her! Go get the village chief!" Soon, the chief arrived with a group of men. He was 90 years old, highly respected, and not to be crossed. "Who's causing trouble here? Stop right now!" the chief roared. Tony's 2 buddies backed off immediately and dragged him away. Megan's face was covered in blood. Seeing the chief, she began wailing. "They're beating an old woman! A whole gang against just me! I can't live like this! You've got to help me!" The chief walked over, scowling. Tony's buddies spoke up. "She started it! Tony's wife nearly lost the baby!" the chief snapped. "And what business is it of yours? Go home and farm!" The 2 men slunk away, heads down. Tony stood tall, unfazed. Grandma hurried over, bowing slightly as she pleaded, "Chief, it was Megan who stirred up trouble first. My second son lost his temper, that's all. Sorry we disturbed you." The chief didn't answer right away. He looked down at Megan, still wailing in the dirt, and said after a long pause, "Good thing no one died today. I won't bother sorting out who's right or wrong. But if this nonsense continues, and the cops get involved, you'll both be banished from the village." With that, he turned and left without another word. The villagers, with no more drama to watch, soon dispersed. Megan, defeated and dragging her broken leg, started toward her house. Grandma stopped her and said, "Megan, you've caused enough trouble. My second son gave you what you deserved. We're even now. Don't come to our house again." Megan stopped and slowly turned her head. She stared at Grandma with a twisted smile. "Even? Dream on. You broke my leg today, your whole family's gonna pay for that." Grandma stood frozen as Megan slammed the door shut. Her words hit us like a stone lodged in our hearts. Back home, Grandpa perked up the moment he heard Megan's leg was broken. He personally slaughtered a chicken, had Grandma buy some fish, and prepared a huge feast. He even brought out a jar of liquor, eager to drink with Tony. Grandma and Aunt tried to talk him out of it, but it was no use. After a few rounds, Grandpa was tipsy and grinning. "So, when are you heading back to the city?" Tony said, "No rush. Anna's about to give birth. I'll stay a bit longer. If Megan comes back, I'll deal with her again." Grandpa was overjoyed. "Good boy. I didn't spoil you for nothing." Aunt frowned and scolded him. "Behave yourself these next few days. No more trouble." Tony's face turned red as he scratched his head and laughed. That night, we all slept soundly. Tony snored loudly, but somehow, it made us all feel safe. For several days, Megan didn't dare show her face. I didn't see her on the way home from school either. Grandpa still had trouble walking, so Uncle Tony took over the mountain chores. My uncle doted on my aunt. One day, while on the mountain, he spotted some wild game and even borrowed a trap from Uncle Si to catch it and stew for her. Early that morning, Grandma suddenly remembered something and said to him, "Son, Anna's been craving those persimmons behind the mountain. Why don't you and Luke go pick some for her?" Uncle nodded right away. He grabbed a ladder and bamboo pole from the shed and took me up the mountain. There was a tall persimmon tree back there, loaded with fruit. It was well hidden, only Uncle knew where to find it. We set up the ladder together, and Uncle climbed up, knocking down persimmons with the bamboo pole. I caught a full sack, took a bite of one, and my mouth filled with sweet, juicy flavor. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Uncle said there were even bigger ones up higher and asked me to find a long branch. I wandered off looking for one, and before I knew it, I was far away. When I looked back, Uncle was still on the tall ladder, waving at me. Just then, I saw a hunched, bony figure slip out from behind the persimmon tree. It was Megan. She crept up to the base of the ladder and began to shake it. Uncle had no idea she was there. A chill ran down my spine. I bolted toward him, yelling, "Uncle, Megan's here!" But the wind had picked up, and he couldn't hear me. Megan shook the ladder a few times, it didn't budge. Frustrated, she threw her whole body into it. Uncle finally noticed the shaking and looked down, but it was too late. The ladder toppled over, and he crashed to the ground. I stood frozen in shock. He landed hard. His right leg hit a boulder with a sickening thud, followed by a scream. His leg was broken. Megan burst out laughing like a child. Limping, she picked up a saw and hobbled toward him. Uncle's face was covered in sweat from the pain. He saw her coming, but couldn't even lift a hand to defend himself. I grabbed a rock to throw at her, but Uncle shouted, "Luke, run! Go get your grandpa!" Before I could react, Megan kicked Uncle in the head, nearly knocking him out. Her eyes gleamed as she stared at his broken leg. "That leg's done for," she said gleefully. "Let me help you saw it off." She knelt beside him, raising the saw. "Get away from him. "You crazy witch," I shouted and hurled the rocket mist. Uncle, gritting his teeth, kept yelling, "Luke, don't come back! Run! Go get help!" Tears streamed down my face as I watched Megan place the saw on his leg and begin sawing. The whole mountain echoed with Uncle's screams. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran downhill as fast as I could, crying and screaming for Grandpa. When we finally got back up the mountain with a group of villagers, Megan was gone. Uncle lay in a pool of blood, barely breathing. His right leg was gone, a gaping wound where it used to be. The persimmon leaves around him were soaked in red. Uncle Si and the other hunters rushed to tie a belt around his thigh. "He's still breathing. We've got to get him to a doctor." Grandma collapsed over him, sobbing uncontrollably. My poor son, Grandpa, red-eyed, tried to pull her away, but she slapped him hard and clutched his shirt, crying, "You damn old fool! Why'd you have to pick a fight with that crazy hag? Why'd you bring Tony back to get revenge? Now look what happened. She took his leg. How am I supposed to live with this? Give my boy back his leg." Everyone rushed over to calm her down and finally managed to lift Uncle and carry him down the mountain. Everyone went to the hospital except Grandpa and me. Grandpa sat on a rock, head down, saying nothing, as if he'd aged 10 years in an instant. The mountain breeze was cold. I said, "Grandpa, let's go down and see Uncle." He jolted as if waking from a trance. After a long pause, he lifted his hand and slapped himself across the face. We didn't head home until the sun was nearly down. Grandma had gone with Uncle to the hospital, leaving just my aunt at home. She didn't know what had happened. Still pregnant, she had made dinner and asked, "What was all the fuss about today? Where's Mom and Tony? Why didn't they come back with you?" I was about to speak when Grandpa pressed me down. Forcing a smile, he said, "Someone was selling donkey meat in the next village. Your mom and Tony went to buy some." Aunt nodded and believed him, telling us to sit down and eat. Grandpa didn't touch his food. He pulled out the leftover liquor from the day before and started drinking cup after cup. Aunt said, "Dad, that stuff's strong. Take it easy." But Grandpa shook his head and took another shot. Then he told us, "Luke, Anna, when you're done eating, lock your doors. No matter what you hear, don't come out." Aunt didn't understand what he meant. Grandpa didn't explain. He just told us to listen to him. Neither of us had much appetite. We forced down a few bites and went to our rooms, leaving Grandpa alone in the courtyard. I peered out the window and saw Grandpa finish the last drop of liquor, then go to the woodshed. He came out carrying a large, slightly rusted black machete. I remembered that machete. Grandpa never let me touch it. Once, I snuck a feel and got scolded harshly. Now he sat in the courtyard, wiping the blade with his sleeve, then pulled out a whetstone, poured water over it, and began sharpening the knife. The screech of steel against stone was piercing and unsettling. Aunt stepped outside and asked, "Dad, why are you sharpening a knife?" Grandpa glanced at her and smiled faintly. "That old sow in the yard's been getting out of line trying to steal feed. I smacked her to scare her, and the damn thing bit me. Some beasts. They live too long. They turn into monsters. I'm sharpening the blade. Tonight, I'm slaughtering her." Aunt frowned but didn't press. Grandpa kept sharpening until dark. The courtyard was still. No wind, no rustling leaves. He didn't light a lamp, just moved about in the dark for a long time before finally going back inside. I sat on the kang bed, staring out the window, waiting for Grandma. I'd always slept with her and couldn't sleep without her. The light in Aunt's room was still on. She was waiting for Uncle. Near midnight, her light went out. I glanced at Grandpa's room. It was dark, too. I couldn't tell if he was asleep. I don't know how long I waited, but eventually, the village roosters began to crow. I heard soft footsteps in the alley and felt a surge of hope Grandma must be back. I slipped on my shoes and rushed to the door, forgetting Grandpa's warning. I crept into the courtyard. The footsteps grew louder and closer. I crouched by the gate, peeking through the crack. In the darkness, a hunched figure limped toward our gate. She stopped right at the entrance. It looked like an old woman. Not wanting to wake Aunt, I whispered, "Grandma, is that you?" The figure paused, leaned close to the door, and chuckled. A chill ran through Mate. Didn't feel like Grandma. Then I saw the eyes peering through the crack, darting and glinting. A raspy voice said, "Hey kid, open the door. I'm here to see your aunt." A cold chill shot down my spine. It was Megan. I fell to the floor in terror. She'd already hurt Uncle Tony, and now she was back for us. She began gently pushing on the gate outside, but Grandpa had locked it. No matter how she shoved, it wouldn't budge. I was too scared to even scream. Instead, I jumped up and ran back into the house. I crawled into bed and hid under the covers, shivering uncontrollably. I could hear her outside, using her saw to cut at the gate's lock slowly, deliberately laughing in that eerie, chilling way. Grandpa was sound asleep, snoring inside. The old lock on the gate had rusted over the years. It didn't take long soon enough. The saw bit through, and the lock snapped. The gate creaked open with a long groan. Then it went quiet. I couldn't hear anything anymore. The yard was silent. I wanted to peek out the window, but I was too afraid. Had Megan gone to my aunt's room? I didn't hear any cries for help. I lay under the blanket, thoughts spinning. I couldn't breathe and finally poked my head out to check what she was doing. Outside the window, everything was still. Moonlight lit the yard. I didn't see her. Maybe she'd gone to the kitchen to steal meat again. I was too scared to stay alone, but I didn't dare call Grandpa. I thought of sneaking into his room, and then Megan suddenly popped up beneath the window. Her pale face pressed hard against the glass, staring right at me. "Hey, little one," she hissed. "Were you looking for me?" My whole body froze. I burst into tears and ducked under the blanket again, trembling all over. I'd even wet myself. Through the gap in the blanket, I saw Megan outside, grinning at me with those twitchy, gleaming eyes. I thought, she saw me. She's going to saw off my legs, too. "Grandpa, please save me." Megan watched me through the window for a while, then turned toward the door. I sobbed silently under the covers. Just as the door creaked open, a hand clamped over my mouth and yanked me off the bed. Megan limped into the room, saw in hand. She walked to the bed and yanked back the blanket, but I wasn't there. I had been pulled behind the cabinet. I turned and saw it was Grandpa. His face was soaked in cold sweat, his breathing heavy. He'd come to save me. Megan, not finding me in bed, wasn't worried at all. She just kept that sinister smile on her face. "Where are you hiding, little one?" she cooed. "If you don't come out, I'll roast you. Baby meat's the softest." I nearly cried again. Grandpa quickly covered my mouth. He whispered into my ear, "Luke, don't make a sound." Megan, hearing nothing, began tearing the room apart, searching. Her smile faded as she grew more frustrated. Then she turned and headed straight for the cabinet. Cold sweat drenched me. Grandpa's hand turned cold and clammy. Megan had a saw and scissors. Grandpa had nothing. We couldn't fight her. She came closer. Just 2 more steps and she'd see us behind the cabinet. My heart pounded, but suddenly, a light flicked on in my aunt's room. Megan froze and glanced out the window. My aunt opened her door slightly and called out, "Luke, was that you crying just now?" My room door was wide open, but inside was deathly quiet. No one answered. Aunt waited, then called again. "Luke, are you in there?" Grandpa's body trembled. She opened the door fully, pulled on a jacket, and stepped outside. Seeing the wide-open gate, she froze for a second, then quickly walked toward my room. "Luke, are you in there?" I panicked inside, screaming in my head, "Don't come, don't come." Megan smiled that twisted grin and turned, scissors in hand, walking toward her. No, I thought. Aunt was in danger. Sure enough, Megan stepped into the yard. Aunt stopped in her tracks. Realizing something was wrong, she let out a cry and turned to run just as Grandpa leapt up and dragged me outside. Megan turned at the noise, but Grandpa shoved her aside. "Anna, take Luke inside. Now." Aunt reacted fast, grabbed my hand, and we ran back into the house. We slammed the door shut. Through the window, I saw Grandpa go to the shed and bring out that big black machete. Megan got up from the ground, eyes full of murderous rage. Grandpa stared her down. "Megan, you've cursed my whole family. Tonight, I'm sending you to hell." He swung the machete, but Megan, though she only had one good leg, rolled away just in time. Grandpa's swing was heavy. Before he could turn back, Megan lunged with her scissors, slashing his arm wide open. Gritting his teeth, Grandpa grabbed her arm and kicked her in the stomach, sending her flying. Watching them fight in the yard, Aunt was frantic. She rummaged through the drawers, found an awl, and said, "Luke, I'm going to help your grandpa. You go get help." She moved to open the door, but I pulled her back. We couldn't afford to let anything happen to her. Aunt was furious. "Now's not the time to overthink it. If your grandpa can't win, we're all dead." Her words lit a fire in me. I grabbed the awl and said, "Auntie, I'll help Grandpa." Before she could stop me, I yanked the door open and charged at Megan. Her back was turned. I threw all my strength into stabbing the awl into her back. She screamed, her face twisting in pain. I panicked and ran back. Megan turned to grab me, but Grandpa pulled her down. He kicked her leg out and pinned her to the ground. Face red, he pressed harder. Megan was vicious, but she was still an old woman no match for Grandpa's strength. She started to lose ground. "Megan! Give me back my son!" Grandpa roared, pressing her down harder. But just as she began to weaken, Grandpa's body seized up. His eyes went wide, and he clutched his chest in pain. No, I thought. His heart hadn't healed, and this fight had pushed him too far. Megan saw him faltering and grinned wickedly. She plunged her scissors into Grandpa's thigh. He screamed and fell. Aunt and I gasped. We slammed the door, but it was no use. Megan kicked it open and glared at us, huddled on the bed. Raising her scissors, she snarled, "You little whore. I've heard unborn babies are the tastiest. I've never tried one before. Let me cut yours out and have a bite." She lunged. Aunt tried to shield herself, but Megan slashed her arm open. I threw a cup at Megan's head. She dodged it and turned on me, hurling curses, scissors raised again. But just as she lifted them, she froze. Two old hands clamped down on her from behind. "Anna, Luke, run." It was Grandpa. Somehow, he was back on his feet, pinning Megan down. She clawed at his hair, scratched his face, gouged at his eyes. "You old bastard! I'll kill you!" she screamed, raising the scissors once more. Just as they reached halfway, loud barking exploded in the alley. 2 or 3 massive black dogs charged into the yard. A familiar voice shouted, "Uncle Jack! Luke!" I knew that voice. It was Uncle Si. Tears spilled down my face as I cried, "Uncle Si! We're in here!" The dogs saw Megan and launched at her, knocking her to the ground. Uncle C stepped into the house and immediately raised his steel rod above Megan's head. I jumped down from the bed to help Grandpa up. Aunt gave him some medicine, and after a while, he recovered enough to ask, "Weren't you at the hospital with the others? Why'd you come back?" Uncle Si wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I couldn't settle down. I just had a feeling Megan would come back here, so I turned around halfway and rushed back in the middle of the night. Grandpa let out a long sigh. Sigh. Thank God for you. Uncle Si pulled a hemp rope from his waist and tied Megan up, planning to bring her to the village chief for questioning. But just then, Aunt suddenly clutched her belly, grimacing in pain. Something's wrong. I think the baby's coming. Uncle C quickly hitched up the donkey cart and rushed her to the hospital again. Grandpa hung Megan from a tree, where she dangled all night. The big black dog circled her non-stop, terrifying her into begging for mercy. At first light, I heard the rooster crow. I said to Grandpa, "Let's take Megan to the village chief." But he frowned and said, "That old bastard only cares about his reputation. We hand her over, and he'll release her right after. Luke, come on, we're taking Megan up the mountain." It was late autumn. The back mountain was covered in thick fog. Megan, battered and bruised, was dragged to the graveyard where wolves often roamed. The forest echoed with howls, and countless green eyes gleamed in the dark, drawn by the scent of blood on her. Megan begged Grandpa over and over to let her go. She swore she'd never cause trouble again. Grandpa spat at her feet and said, "You've spent your life stealing from others. Now your time's up. Feeding you to the wolves might cleanse a bit of your sin." With that, Grandpa turned and led me away. We hadn't gone far when several wolves emerged from the forest and circled Megan. Then they attacked. She screamed and cursed till the end. "I won't forgive you in my next life. You just wait." We hurried to the hospital. Aunt gave birth to a big, healthy baby. Boy, mother, and child were safe. Uncle Tony survived thanks to timely treatment, though he lost his leg. He and Aunt held each other and wept. Everyone cursed Megan's name. We stayed in the hospital for nearly a month. When it was time to go home, Uncle C brought Uncle Tony back on the donkey cart. Passing Megan's house, Grandpa told him to stop. He got out, grabbed some bundles of straw, carried them into her yard, poured oil on them, and set fire to the old place. Smoke billowed. Flames roared into the sky. People gathered to watch, but no one said a word. Halfway through the burn, the village chief came rushing in. "Jack, are you crazy? What if the police show up because of this fire? Your family better pack up and leave the village now." Grandpa ignored him, eyes fixed on the blaze. Just then, Uncle Tony's two loyal buddies stepped forward, grabbed the chief by the shoulder, and smiled. "Chief, your son messed with a girl from the next village last month. Forced us to cough up 600 yuan each for her abortion. Now he's disappeared, but we're settling that debt today. Or maybe we should take it up with the police?" The chief's face turned pale, and he fell silent. Burning Megan's house felt like cleansing a blight on the village. Within a few years, the village chief fell ill and died, and peace returned to our lives. Uncle Tony couldn't work the fields anymore, so he opened a small shop in the village, selling grains and groceries. We raised more hens, added some piglets. Grandpa doted on me and my younger brother, always asking Grandma to steam white buns and stew chicken for us. The village grew prosperous, and no one ever came begging at our door again.